Welcome everybody once again. Why France is the best friend British exporters will ever have. That's our topic for today, together with Unsworth and BBL Group. Next slide, Anne. So there you go, Ian, the word is yours. Go ahead.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Thanks for the brief introduction there, Arthur. Yeah, why is France such a good idea for exporters? Well, this is something that we've been doing at Unsworth for the past 18 months since Brexit, using France as the primary point of entry. The role that we play in this kind of trio with RMB Insider and BBL is Unsworth takes care of the export through France. We do the export declaration, we manage the whole process and the interface for you so that exporting through France is as seamless as possible. And if you need haulage, that's also something that we can help with. Next slide, please. And the benefits of shipping through France, hopefully they will become quite clear as we go on through this. There's very many of them from our perspective. I'll just cover the logistics aspects from the UK into the EU perspective. Basically means that you are clearing through France, you're not dealing with the 27 other member states, so it kind of crystallizes everything through a single point. You're not dealing with multiple authorities and inspection points. And for those who have to deal with the haulage and know what a T1 is, you'll be very glad to hear that clearing through France as soon as you enter in Calais means that you don't have to deal with T1s, and the cost and complications of that are removed. So I think from the export perspective, that pretty much covers it. Obviously, if you've got any questions after the presentation, I will answer them as and when they come up. But from Unsworth, that's it. So on to the next slide, please.
That's great, Ian. Thank you very much. And there we have Clément. It's your turn now. Can you explain to us, as from the French side, being the customs broker on the French side, how France is the best friend of British exporters? Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Arthur. Good morning, everyone. First of all, I'm Clément, Brexit manager of BBL Group. Very briefly, let me introduce the Brexit team at BBL. So we are composed of 10 experienced customs brokers. I am personally managing on a daily basis. We have 3 of them dedicated for the veterinary and phytosanitary processes. We are keen on and we have expertise to clear absolutely all kinds of goods. We cover a full week assistance 7 days a week. We have automatized, obviously, process in order to integrate very much commodity code and very high volume of commodity codes in a very short time. And we have a single brokerage partnership with Unsworth and shared clients with RMB Insider to manage that. Next slide, please. So now let's focus on why France is the best friend of the British shippers as the first T1 entry point and the place of clearance. First of all, you must understand that the DDP processes allows the British shipper to be absolutely responsible of all the customs clearances process. The consignee will never be involved in the custom process, which means that you will continue to be competitive on the EU market. For the benefits, there are benefits for both sides. First of all, for the British shippers, finally, there is an improvement of the clarity and the control. Selling DDP will avoid the famous who is responsible for what with the use of the different Incoterms. Then, clearing only in France means that you will be submitted to only one legislation. So using Calais and Dunkirk as the place of clearance will be very useful for you, as you will be submitted to only one regulation with BBL. And then using the smart border process, as exactly Jan said, avoiding T1 documents will allow your goods to be cleared immediately when they enter on the French territory. For the European consignee, so for your clients, finally, it will make their life easier. The DDP will not involve them in the customs process. So all fees related to the customs clearance, I mean, duties, taxes, customs fees, deferment fees will be charged directly to you and will be totally transparent for you, EU consignee. And to conclude, absolutely no responsibility will be related to your consignee in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years after the goods being cleared, he will be not involved in any potential customs control. That's all for me. Over to you, Arthur, and thank you all.
Thank you, Clément. Very brief and very clear. So what concerns us, we are then the fiscal representative or the VAT agent in France, working together with Unsworth and BBL as a long-standing trio already for the whole Brexit period and even before that. So what we do is VAT registration and compliance across all EU member states. We take care of your VAT returns. We take care of the fact that all your documents would be compliant with the local rules. We also do overall VAT consultancy services. Well, myself, I'm Mr. Brexit, and together with Alan, you can see already a part of our dedicated Brexit team, of course, which is for us a very important country as well in both directions. So we also handle the Brexit challenges for example, French suppliers wanting to import DDP into the UK as well. And we also act as an economic operator for CE mark products. In short, our mission together with Alan and the whole team is to make sure that you can continue trading as if Brexit really never happened, at least from a logistical perspective and formalities. Next slide, please. So, I mean, this has been already touched by Clément and by Ian as well, but I think that the smart border really deserves a lot of attention, because this is a revolutionary way of basically letting goods through from one country to another. Very fast, very quick. And maybe in the beginning, people were afraid that it wouldn't work well, but it does really work quite fluid. We have a fully automated and digitalized process that can help you crossing the channel without really any holdups, quite fast. And the goods are basically cleared while you're crossing. And as said, no T1s required. Next slide. Alan, you maybe want to tell something about the DDP process?
Good morning, everybody. Thanks, Arthur, Clément, Ian. And I would echo everything that has been said already. We are trying to make it like Brexit never happened. And the easiest way to do that is to get the UK goods into the EU as quickly and as seamlessly as possible, as most cost effectively as possible, and then have those goods cleared. And once we leapfrog them into the EU, France is the closest place logistically, geographically. It's got the lowest compliance costs. It's the easiest to deal with in terms of authority. So once we've leapfrogged the goods into the EU, into France, then they are in free circulation to be delivered to anywhere in the EU, to any of your customers, with no further VAT and no further customs. And that's what DDP stands for. It's delivered duty paid, and it means that you are, as the UK exporter, are responsible for those goods all the way up to your customer's door. Now, post-Brexit, a lot of people turn to DAP, Ex-Works, FCA, all of the other acronyms you can get thrown at you. But DDP is what your European customers are used to. It's what they want. And we're here to tell you that there is a simple solution to bring that back into your workflow and your supply chain. Next slide, please. So here's what we do. The easiest way for you to do it, the most cost-effective, stable way for you to do this is to have your own VAT number in France. And we can do that for you. We can register your company for VAT in France. And there is another solution as well, where you could actually use our global VAT number. It's a separate VAT number that a company like RMB, who is accredited with the VAT authorities, has to rent out, if you like, to our trusted clients. So there's two platforms. There's either having your own French VAT number or using ours. Either way, those goods are cleared and the import VAT is taken care of as your goods cross the border. And there's no import VAT to pay anymore. You can't pay your broker and then have to claim it back. So there's no cash flow issues anymore. Those transactions are automatically inserted into your VAT return on the following month, because the reverse charge mechanism in France is now mandatory, has to be done. So when we've set up your French VAT number, we will prepare and file your VAT returns on a monthly basis. We'll deal with all correspondence and questions with the VAT authorities, and all questions and correspondence with you as well, and your clients. We can even talk to your clients in Europe because we have a multilingual office over there in northern France. And that we find that helps our clients a heck of a lot when especially when they're switching back to a DDP solution that maybe they're not particularly used to. Next slide, please. And the strength of that solution is that you are the importer of record. It's all in your name. You remove all of that administrative burden from your client's doorstep and you take it all on, just like pre-Brexit, just like you would ship out of, Birmingham and ship to Austria and Germany and Portugal, wherever pre-Brexit. Well, you're doing exactly the same now. You're just getting the goods into France first and then shipping them out. We've got a dedicated Brexit team, as Arta said, and you must realize that there are no other implications, no other tax implications once you've dealt with the VAT. You don't have to set up an entity or a company in the EU, in France. It's just the VAT that you're taking care of. And because France has worked so hard to make itself the most attractive point of entry into the EU, spent €1 billion on the port of Calais. They've whitelisted UK companies so that there's a reciprocal tax agreement between the two countries, which means that a UK company could just own a VAT number and trade in France and the EU as if it were an entity without having all of the things that go with having an entity: corporation tax, social contributions, bookkeeping, etc., etc. So with that one VAT number, you can supply all of your European customers all across the board and have, as we say, no T1s, no further VAT because it's taken care of at crossing, no further customs checks because it's taken care of at crossing. So you are in control all the way to your customer's doorstep, which makes you as competitive as you were pre-Brexit with your European clients. Next slide, please. And that's it. Now that sounds like I've oversimplified it, but it really is that simple. You have your own VAT number, you get your goods into the EU, cleared, import VAT taken care of, and you deliver. It really is that simple. So here's the point where you get to open up your cameras, open up your microphones, and ask any questions that you've got, and we will, amongst us, we will deal with them.
Thanks, Alan. Thanks a lot. I think in a recap, we could say that the purpose of this all is to show that France, in comparison with other countries, even neighboring countries such as Belgium or the Netherlands, really does their best efforts they can to be as accessible and as easy for British exporters, and so to obviously attract more flows of goods to France instead of other countries. So we have spoken about the logistical part, we have spoken about the customs part, and we have also now spoken about the fiscal part of the things. Within all three of the topics that we have touched, we have quickly went through the fact that France really is a very simplified and cost-effective choice to get your goods into the EU. And
so our first question, Arta.
Yes,
in fact, we've got two questions. We've got one from Edzam and one from Tamara, and it's the same question. So I think all of us have mentioned that there's no T1s required anymore, and we've been asked by Edzam to explain how does that work, and Tamara the same. Why do we not need a T1? A T1 document is used to transport goods from the point of entry, so from Calais, to the point where those goods are going to clear customs. So if you were going to clear customs in Germany, for example, but your goods landed in Calais, you would need a T1 document to transport those goods from Calais to Germany for them then to clear customs in Germany. So that T1 document is almost like they were bonded. They haven't touched customs, they've not entered the EU officially, they wait until they get to Germany to clear customs there. Well, if you're clearing customs in France, those goods are then in free circulation, so they can be driven to Germany without the need for a T1 document. So you don't need to have a T1 document because you've already dealt with the customs clearance for the whole of the EU, and those goods are in free circulation.
Yeah.
Hope
So
that.
basically, it's meaning when you open the door to the EU, you step in on that same moment. You say, guys, here are my goods. Please clear it. You make sure that the formalities are done so that the transit, because this is what the T1 is. Ian and Clément, please do correct me if I'm wrong, but a T1 is basically a transit document permitting you to transit from one point to another for goods that are not cleared, isn't it?
Yeah, correct. The T1 document is a document which allows the goods to be cleared into another place than the first EU entry place.
Yeah.
The fact is that with the smart border, which is a unique process, it allows the truck to be cleared immediately when they enter into France. The process is very easy. BBL raises a pre-lodged import clearance, which will give us a barcode. This barcode will have to be scanned by the driver on the British side just before the boarding on the ferry. And while he will be crossing the channel, the clearance will be switched. So the French clearance will switch from the status anticipated to the status validated and cleared.
Yeah. And what happens then is that those goods are then treated as an intra-community sale, as if they were being sold from France to another EU country. So, but as I say, free circulation.
Yeah, and I think it's important also to say that that's really also for a part or for a big part the wonderful thing about the smart border. Imagine if you wouldn't have this smart border, you would still need the T1 even for shipments that would be cleared in France, because you still have to go from Calais to the customs office where you would clear it. So even in France, you would need that kind of document and cost to be made. Germany, same thing. If you're importing to Hamburg but you're clearing in Cologne, your truck must go to Cologne, and for that part, guys, again, correct me if I'm wrong, there is a T1 and so a cost to be made. So by clearing it on the really, you know, the how do you say that, the crossing of the border almost literally, there is no need to have this cost. And I can see Tamara is very, very happy with the answer. So our pleasure, Tamara.
We have a question from Michael Dunn as well. How will you handle foodstuffs and sanitary goods, medicines, etc.? Do they still need to be inspected? And also melamine products. I'll hand this over to Clément. He's the most expert at this.
Yeah, so regarding foodstuff and phytosanitary goods, my answer will be it depends on the HS code and the technical data sheet of the goods. It will require a specific analysis from our team. Regarding the melamine products, it depends on the origin of the goods. So my answer would be yes, in 80% of the time, the control is done at the first EU entry point. So once again, it's Calais or Dunkirk, but it depends on the exact composition of the good or the origin of the good. So can be discussed in a separate meeting.
And in your experience, Clément, how long is it taking for those checks? What kind of delay on transit time is it?
It really depends on the volume of trucks waiting at the 𝗕𝗵𝗶 parking, because we could have the control pass within an hour or half an hour. But it could take also 4 to 5 hours depending on the volume of trucks present on the 𝗕𝗵𝗶 parking waiting for the control.
But still only 4 to 5 hours, not days. We're talking, you know, we're talking under half a day, not in full days.
Yeah. The average waiting time for a normal 𝗕𝗵𝗶 control would be from 1 to 2 hours maximum.
Yeah, I mean, guys, I have heard trucks sitting within the Spanish customs or Portuguese customs for weeks, for a month. So I think, Clément, when you say 4 to 5 hours, probably the people that endured these kind of situations, waiting for a month until their goods were cleared, find this probably laughable. 4 to 5 hours is really like just a traffic jam or something like that. Probably
it's a cup of coffee, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, a couple of them, and maybe a couple of cigarettes as well. But bad habit. I'm quitting. 𝗕𝗵𝗶 also added, Alan, regarding the previous conversation about the T1s and all that. And then if the goods are cleared in France, are they then treated as an intracommunitary delivery? So indeed they are. It depends really how and to whom you are selling your goods. So once, so you have your chain of events that is starting with Antwerp doing the export documents, then Clément and his wonderful team doing the import and the clearance. And once these goods are cleared into France, the fact is that you remain the owner of the goods. That's the whole point of the solution. And so either you will be selling through France, basically using France as an entry point, but the goods will then go to Germany, for example. And this is indeed regarded as an intra-community delivery, the same type of transaction that you used before Brexit by delivering from the UK to Germany directly, with the same VAT exemption rule. Nothing changed from a European perspective. So once the goods are cleared and you are still the owner of the goods in France, what happens next is still managed by the same VAT rules as before. Or you are selling to a French company, for example, and that would be then a local supply of goods on French territory, because the moment that you're selling, you are the owner of the goods and you're selling into France for the goods that are already cleared. So in short, that also will be VAT exempted, because unlike, for example, in the UK, where a local supply of goods, a local sale of goods to another, British company or client would be taxed with British VAT. In France, we have an exemption rule for that, not allowing non-established companies to collect any French VAT on the sale. So basically, whatever the type of the transaction would be, now we're not talking about B2C, that's another conversation, but if we're talking about B2B, in both cases, you will not have to charge any VAT on your subsequent sale after having the goods cleared into France. I think Katerina unmuted yourself. Did you, Katerina? You want to ask a question?
I'm not that prepared to ask a question, but honestly, congratulations for this 1 hour discussion. I will go more in depth because I'm really interested and recommend it to everyone else. I've got some difficulties with clearing the goods in France under various commodity codes, but I think that will be cleared after some emails to you, Arthur, when I finally sit to write an email.
Sure. And as you can see, Clément and Ian could also help from a customs perspective. So please do write them an email if it's about specific HS codes, and we're happy to help.
I've got specific scenario that is my every week repeating scenario, so I have to be more specific and discuss it with you.
Okay, no problem.
Thank you.
In the meanwhile,
we have a question from Lee.
Yeah.
From Lee Woodings. Lee said, with regard to the customs clearance procedures, do AEO holders have any priority status? Now, I'm going to have to pass this one over to Clément and Ian because I do not know what that means. So please enlighten me. What's an AEO holder, Clément?
AEO
authorized economic operator.
Yeah, there. Hi.
Katerina, can you put yourself on mute for me?
So I will answer for the French side. Unfortunately, if the AEO agreement is related to the shipper or the importer, unfortunately not. There is no change or no consideration from the customs authorities. However, the customs broker in charge of the customs clearance, so BBL as an example, having the AEO agreement, obviously we are not prioritized in front of the customs authorities in terms of clearance, but we have less inspection and documentary control comparing customs broker without this agreement. So the answer would say no for the prioritized in terms of customs clearances, but yes from a pure customs control and inspection perspective.
Fair enough. And following on from that, Lee's asked the panel, how do we see the UK-EU negotiations going in the future with regard to the Northern Ireland Protocol? And do they think that's going to set up a trade war with the EU, and how will that affect the French smart border?
And that's a philosophical question, isn't it, Alan?
It's a big one, that, isn't it?
Yeah, but to be honestly, well, everything can happen. We have seen that with Russia and Ukraine now as well. Nobody expected that to happen. It happened anyway. To be honest, maybe I'm an optimist, I don't know, but there is one thing when dogs are barking and politics is doing one thing, but what we have seen up until today as the way how the French tax authorities conduct themselves, the way how French customs authorities work and their stance toward the British traders, exporters, I would really be surprised. Again, I don't have a view in the future, but personally, I would really be surprised if that would soar completely the relationship with France and the UK, and all of a sudden France wouldn't be happy anymore to welcome British exporters clearing through their ports and going onwards to other European countries. I think for France, this is a vital thing. I think it's also a prestige thing because France is eager to prove themselves as a worthy international partner and the gate to Europe, leading the European Union in that sense, and not giving any space to the Belgians and the Dutch. Now, to be honest, I'm Belgian myself, so if Belgium would be better as an input country, I would be advertising now for Belgium. Sorry, Ian and Clément, but I'm working for money, of course, but it is not better. France is better, and they are really putting a lot of effort in that. So again, nothing is certain, but I don't see how France could all of a sudden turn around and say we don't want the Brits anymore and we will make your life miserable. I'm really not.
I understand what you're saying, Arthur. I mean, I think if anything like that does happen, it will be a short-term thing to try and get pulling Britain into line. As we've seen happen before, but it's too important. It's too important to mess up.
Yeah.
So, for anybody else, is anybody else that would like to come off mute or turn their cameras on and ask any other questions of us?
If I may, Alan.
Hey, Saif, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. You? Couldn't recognise you without the French beard.
Yeah, that was my winter plumage. This is summer,
okay.
Summer smooth.
Yeah, well, me, I'm sold on this idea. I absolutely love the ease with which we'd be able to trade, especially with all our European customers. And we don't have any French customers, though we do have a French entity which deals with the French customers. So we more or less want to send everything on to our other European customers. And this seems like a really good idea. I have pushed a lot with our finance to go ahead with the sales deal. I mean, they have two inhibitions. One is in relation to a VAT number, where they say we don't want another liability of a VAT number where we are liable to pay the taxes, where we're liable to create accounts, where we're liable to file the VAT returns every month and an annual return, because that is a part of this process, isn't it? Because with that VAT number comes a responsibility to file a return.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right.
Cool.
And we have a number of clients who have felt the same way. And if they are dealing with their French clients in a way that they're already happy with, then dealing with the rest of their European clients, we do have some clients that use our global VAT number for that service, so that they don't have that responsibility. So that isn't in-house, and all of those transactions go on our global VAT number, and we are liable and responsible for the VAT return and for the VAT liability on your transactions. It's a great system. It's a fantastic regime that's we've been using for a long time for companies that aren't based in France, people in Canadian companies, people in the Middle East, Australian companies. It's a tax regime that we've been using a long time and is now open to the UK because the UK is no longer part of Europe.
Of course. And the second part which comes with it is the importer of record. Obviously, a non-EU entity cannot be the importer of record. So would that responsibility also be
No, absolutely a non-EU entity can be the importer of record.
Yeah,
that's
you're talking about the exporter of record. If it would be the other way around, if you would try to re-export goods from France to outside the EU as being a non-EU entity, for example, a British one, then obviously the team of 𝗕𝗏 will be blocked because they wouldn't be able to put you as the exporter of records from the EU to non-EU country. But to enter the EU, for the moment at least, I can't tell you what will be happening in 20 years from now, but for the moment at least, there are no signs that the customs would prevent non-EU established companies to be the importer of records. So what we have today is we have in box 8, 𝗕𝗏, Ian, you confirm again if I'm saying any weird stuff, but in box 8, the box of the importer, we have thousands, tens of thousands import documents already seen passing by with British companies, with American companies, with Canadian companies, whatever you like. And then in box 44, mentioning their VAT number as also to show that from a fiscal perspective, they are the importer as well. So you have from both the fiscal perspective and the customs perspective, mentioning the British, for example, exporter in this case as the importer of records into France.
But then we need to appoint someone as the our representative as the importer, because the customs debt cannot be owned by a non-EU company. So somebody has to be responsible for the customs debt, which means we'll have to have some representation.
Yes, indeed. And companies such as BBL are acting as the indirect customs representative. They are happy to do that for British importers. Not all customs agents, by the way, are doing that. And that's why we work together with BBL very often, just because the cooperation is very clear and everybody knows their role, everybody knows the risk that they are taking on behalf of our clients, the importers here, for example, a British company. So indeed, BBL will act as the indirect customs representative, for example. And we, from a fiscal perspective, we have two choices. Either you are using our global VAT number, and then we act as the limited tax representative, and we take quite a lot of liability on ourselves because obviously you're using our VAT number. So then we're quite annoying in the sense that we want the documents to be in order. We are taking liabilities on ourselves from a fiscal perspective. 𝗕𝗏 and 𝗕, from a customs perspective, the documents must be in order. Either you have your own French VAT number as a non-established company, and that's the whole point where the French already prior to Brexit showed their love to their British neighbors. The French tax authority said, we will whitelist British companies, we will whitelist the UK, and so you will not need a fiscal representative. So what happens then, when a British company has their own VAT number, we act as a VAT agent.
Right.
In normal words, a service supplier. That's it. You remain responsible and liable for your operations, and if you would do anything wrong, the French tax authorities would kindly contact the HMRC, and the HMRC will pass on the message to you saying that you have maybe wrongly filed something or something like that. That's the whole difference, I think, with Belgium, with the Netherlands, and a bunch of other countries that do consider British exporters as same as Americans, same as, I would say, I don't know, Nigerians, Chinese companies, whatever. And that's a very important difference between France and all the other countries. Whereas in Belgium, in the Netherlands, you need a fiscal representative, you need bank warranties, etc., etc. Germany, limiting the number of imports that a non-established company can do
9
in a year. So for some reason, they have come up with 10. Once you have 10 imports, the Germans say, thank you, come again next year.
Oh, it's not even 10, it's just 9. I don't know why.
Or 9, yeah, 9.
I don't know why.
Better, even better, 9. Is it a holy number or something? I don't know. Is it a religion or something? I don't know why 9. Really not safe. So I think this is very important to highlight the position that the French tax authorities and customs authorities take towards the British exporters is very crucial here. They try to continue as much as possible to consider the British not differently from what they were when you were still in the union, if that makes sense.
The second question was, will the invoice, say for example, the goods are traveling up to Germany, would the invoice need to be in two parts? So would we need one invoice up for up to clearance in France, and then a second invoice selling from France to the customer in Germany? Or can the invoice which is created in the UK right up to Germany can that be used for clearance and for delivery up to Germany?
Now you're knocking on my door now. This is what I do the whole day. Alan, if you would permit me.
It's all yours.
This is my,
this time, I'll let you answer this one.
I mount my horse now and I'm going to battle. Basically because of the fact that we are geeks, Saif, we like to see that the operations and the flow of goods are reflected in documents. Now, from a fiscal perspective, how we regard to it, and in extension to that, the fiscal authorities as well, to the whole operation, is that first of all, because of the fact that you remain the owner of the goods when the goods are cleared, we have basically a transfer of goods from your UK VAT number to your French VAT number, but there is no sale yet. So the only document you could have there is, well, you have the export document, of course, the import document then showing the British exporter as also the importer in France, and possibly, well, most of the time it makes sense also a customs invoice. Clément will be happy to elaborate on that, but that's not a financial document. That's a customs invoice, a way basically to communicate with Clément, with the customs broker, and with the customs to show what you want to do. The only invoice that, from a financial perspective, that we need is basically there is only one sales invoice. The sale is happening after clearance, after customs. So you will have only one sales invoice from the British company with a French VAT number. Whether that's their VAT number or ours that is rented, that's a detail. But with a French VAT number, selling to, for example, to their client in Germany with their German VAT number. That's the only financial document that is to be created.
There doesn't need to be a second invoice raised after clearance from France to the German customer.
Well, after clearance, but for the clearance, you only have the customs invoice, but that's not a financial invoice. That document will never be seen by the German. He will not receive that. That's just to clear your goods, right? Saif? Was I too violent? We lost Saif, I think. Saif, I hope it helped, and I hope.
So basically, Arthur, what you're saying is there's a sales invoice from UK to Germany
using a French VAT number.
Using a French VAT number,
yeah.
But that sales invoice remains the same. Could be from UK direct to this client in Germany.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, you are invoicing from a French perspective because you're invoicing from French territory, and obviously then that invoice needs to be compliant with the French invoicing rules. But yes, there is only one invoice, and that sales invoice, that financial invoice, is going from the British exporter to the German company. And because the English exporter, who is also the importer, will use a French VAT number, from the German perspective, they're buying from France. This is clarified by the fact that they have a French VAT number on their invoice. Because when the Germans then will, for example, also file that purchase invoice into their VAT and Interest return, they will refer to the French VAT number that is visible on it and not to the British one, because they're buying from France.
So that was the question. So when so does it create an obligation to register this invoice on the French EC sales? Because obviously on the German side, it would be recorded in the Interest.
Of course,
yeah.
From both sides, yes.
And
yes.
So does the British company hold the responsibility to maintain that EC sales as well, alongside the VAT responsibility?
Yes, only for goods that are going from France to another European country. Obviously, if there are goods that are sold from the UK to the Philippines or you know, or whatever, or on DAP terms, this is obviously out of scope. But yes, all the goods that are cleared within the European Union and then shipped from a certain European Union country to another, that remains an easy delivery. That didn't change. So yes, the British company then will hold the obligation to file VAT returns. And if they have relevant operations, if that happens, also the Intrastat return, so that it would, you know, match from both sides. As you say, the Germans will file it as an acquisition, and we, on behalf of the British exporter, will file then the same thing as a EC delivery, as an EC sale.
And that's a service that we do for our clients. It's not.
Of course. Great. Thank you. Sorry, that's me. Sorry. Thank you.
No, not at all. I've really relevant questions, and you have made me talk, so I feel important now. That's good. Alan, we have another question, I think, in the chat box, if I'm not mistaken.
Actually, no, it's
oh yes, sorry.
Christoph, lovely to hear from you, Christoph. Just wanting to speak to BBL with regard to customs clearances from the UK out to Poland via France. So Christoph, sure Clément will be in touch with you to discuss that.
Sure, no problem. We will set up a call together.
Perfect. Okay, so would anybody else like to test this panel and test this panel's knowledge and have any questions either typed or verbally? Come on, don't be shy now. Turn your microphones on.
Hi, Alan. I've sent a message in the chat box. We met at the multimodal weeks ago. I was wondering, will you be able to arrange a briefing for our colleagues here at Chamber International regarding fiscal representation and also the work that you do as an RMB?
Yeah, absolutely. We'll if we have a chat later today, we can book a date in the diary, and we can give a webinar like this, but a bit more detailed, a bit more informative rather than a Q&A. But yeah, we can book that in, sure.
Pick me.
No, not
also
you.
Another question. I read about this somewhere as well, that you don't need fiscal representation in France, and someone mentioned just now that if you have a VAT number, you don't need a fiscal representation. What's the difference then if you are going with a fiscal representation or a VAT?
It's a matter of liabilities. It's a matter of who is taking the fiscal liability. Just as from a customs perspective, you have direct and indirect customs representative. Here it's the same thing. So if we would be working for an American company with a French VAT number, we would act as a fiscal representative, which means that if something goes wrong, if the American doesn't pay their VAT that is due to be paid or whatever it is, it's the fiscal representative that is pursued and burned at the stake by the tax authorities. If we are acting as a VAT agent, as basically a service supplier, nothing else, and obviously the risks and the liability remains on the British exporter because of the fact that we have a reciprocal agreement between France and the UK, and the French tax authorities will just send a letter to the HMRC asking them, guys, please go visit this company because they're doing something wrong, for example, or they just have any questions. Now, in that case, if we are not taking any risks, well, that's great for us. And obviously it will change a little bit also our costs and our fees, because we, the less risk you take, the less it costs. The more risk you take, the more it costs. So that's really the biggest difference, I think. The work that we are doing remains the same. It's still the VAT declaration that needs to be filed. We still need to do the Intrastat return if there are any relevant how do you say that, operations or transactions. So that is really remaining the same. It's really a matter of who is taking the risk, who is taking the fiscal responsibility on every operation that you do.
Okay, thank you.
My pleasure. It's such a wonderful day. Either people are spending time in the sun and they don't have any other questions. Either we have answered already all the questions.
Then listen, if there aren't any other questions, our contact details on screen right now. We are happy to have one-on-one conversations with you about your particular setup and any solutions that we can suggest to you that will help you either get back into Europe or make your solution into Europe more streamlined and more cost effective.
Yeah. Once, twice, if there are no other questions that you would like to put into the public.
I've just got a quick question or statement, if you like, Artur. And I noticed that 𝗕𝗿𝗍 was seems to be having a bit of pain at the 𝗕𝗵 with repeating scenarios. If you want to reach out to myself, you've got my contact details there, Katerina. We can set up a quick meeting and you can explain to me exactly what's happening there, and we can see how we can hopefully alleviate that for you. So feel free to reach out.
Yeah, well, we'll circulate to all subscribers all the contact details. So
and likewise for those who haven't spoken up that are having similar issues, just reach out and set up a call with Clément or myself to see how we can streamline the process for you.
Great. I would like to thank from the bottom of my heart my colleagues here, Ian, Clément,